We owe it to our kids to learn about money, whether we feel like we're savvy with finances or not. We need to learn a little bit, and we need to raise our kids in order to take the intimidation and the fear out of their lives. Because if the parent is teaching the child, then from the get-go, this can be something very comfortable to learn.
Today's guest is the kind of financial coach we all wish we had. The guy is clear, empathetic, he's experienced and real. With over 25 years in communication and design and a sharp focus on financial clarity, Scott Yamamura helps people to overcome financial paralysis and take control of their money. He's the author of the Financial Epiphany. He's a board member at Financial Fitness Club and a champion for mid-career earners looking to get unstuck and get ahead. Guys, if you have ever felt overwhelmed, ashamed, or just simply unsure about your next money move, this conversation is for you. Let's dive in. So, ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, please let us welcome Mr. Yamamura. Hello, Scott. How are you doing, my brother?
Hey, Chuck's good to be on here. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Can you tell us, a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you had mentioned, 25 years in communication. So that's anything from web design to design to photography to videography. And that's currently what I do now is run the video communications for a Fortune 15 company in the United States. And while I was busy communicating there, I saw that there was an issue with communicating finances to the average person, just the average person. Now, the average person does not consider themselves financially savvy, but we all have to use money our entire lives. We're immersed in it. However, the average person doesn't have a lot of formal education. And I noticed that. And I noticed we were all going about things quietly, not really discussing things, but maybe not even going things in an optimized way. We can learn about money and do it in such a strategic way. So simply, we just never go find out how, and we don't know who to go to. In fact, when I was growing up, my mom used to tell me as a child, talking about money was like talking about your underwear. And what she meant by that is that, hey, money is a private topic. I mean, you don't want to be out there boasting about our bank accounts. However, if we're not talking about how money works, like retirement, saving for retirement, saving, investing, these things, that's a huge area where we're just guessing and we're looking at other people not talking about it and we're guessing what they're doing. That's not much of a strategy. That's not much of a plan for dealing with something so big as money.
Yeah. This is what we talk every day here. Here on the Curious Tycoon Podcast, we all want to be tycoons. As you know what it means to be a tycoon, it means to be a business leader in your field, captain of industry, entrepreneur. So most of my listeners are entrepreneurs or upcoming entrepreneurs who just want to learn, who just want to sort of understand. And honestly, the Financial Epiphany, guys, just to tell you as well, the book is quite interesting. Is a must read, I think, for anyone who wants to really get ahead of the curve. But let's talk about what inspired you to write the Financial Epiphany, and how did your background in communication influence that approach, the approach you took to writing the book?
All right. Simplify, simplify, simplify. That is the point. Now, most people are low on financial literacy. When there's financial literacy tests, most of us are not passing it or scoring at a healthy level. And so that's most of us. So either that's us or someone we're married to or in a relationship or in the same household of or roommates with or a neighbor with or with coworkers with. We all know people that need to know more about finances. And so that's what's perked me up is that I thought everybody was doing fine. When you look at our possessions, when you look at our electronics and our cars and our homes and our vacations and social media, it looks like we're all doing fine. But that actually is just on the surface. Underneath, most of us are living paycheck to paycheck, and most of us are in debt. So 78% or so may be living paycheck to paycheck, and 77% may be in some sort of debt, sometimes US dollars wise up to $100,000. So that's quite a bit, 1 or 2 years wages worth in debt. And that's normal. That's common. We're sitting on the edge of the cliff together and got used to normalizing crisis. There's the financial crisis that was experienced recently in the US. There's the housing crisis we experienced. There's the retirement crisis and the student loan crisis. We all talk about crisis, crisis, crisis. It's like we've gotten normal, or we've gotten used to that being normal, and it really shouldn't be. And so I kept hearing those crisis words, and I thought, no, that cannot be normal. That cannot be what we accept. And so I decided to do something about it and learn about finances myself. So I researched and studied finances, took classes, workshops. I studied to become a certified coach, and I wrote a book for 3 years called Financial Epiphany because of this reason of, hey, the average person looks like they know what they're doing, but we really don't. We need to learn. And so that's why simply is the way to teach, because most of us, we don't feel like we have the time or the interest or the passion to learn about it. And there's shame and guilt that can come when we don't know about money and don't do anything about it for years. And then finally we're faced with, I should probably figure this out. What have I been doing the last 10 years? And we're afraid to look back and see. So, yeah, putting it one other way, there's a great irony, I call it. When we're older, say middle age, we care a lot about money. We need to save for retirement. We need to save for our children's college. We may need to help take care of aging parents. And money is coming for us. So we do need to think about it. And we're kind of forced to at that point. So we really care about it, but we can do less about it because of our age. And then the irony is that when we're younger, we're so busy with life, school, relationships, our first job, and we can do so much with money. We're so leveraged at that time with compound interest, which we'll talk about later, but we don't really care about it. Our life is so busy. So that's that great irony. When we're older, we care a lot about money, but can't multiply it as much. When we're younger, we can multiply it in masses, but we don't care about it as much. And so that's the great irony. That's what I'm trying to solve.
Yeah. I'm going to piggyback a bit. So while you were talking there, I got an epiphany myself, just to ask you, because I'm not sure everyone watching right now knows this already. So what's your background then? Like, if you have a degree or whatever, what was your background then initially? I know you've worked in communications. Did you study communications? What was it initially, the first sort of degree you had?
Right.
Was it in communications?
You got it.
Yeah.
Communications was my bachelor's degree, 4 years in college. And then I also came out with a video certificate, which was an additional year, and then a web design certificate. So I came out and started as a web designer out of school, and that was the most available job. And I wanted to work towards video communications because I love what that does. Video includes time, sound, emotion, and it can take a leader of a company and spread their message to all of the employees. And that's what I do. And so I feel that having studied that and having a job that absolutely directly aligned with that, I was fortunate enough having done that for 25 years now, and my job has been to simplify and distill messages every single day of my working life. When I saw that it worked so well for a corporation, I work for one of the top 15 companies in the United States. I knew that needed to move to finances where most of us are silently suffering. We just can't see it. Money comes for us one day. It's going to come knocking on our door and say, can you retire today? Or, oh, you just lost your job. How are you really doing? And we want to put people in a really healthy place. And it's really easy to do so if we just look at the simplest way to do it.
Yeah. I have a friend who have the second point you talked about losing your job, really. And this is what I want people to get. I want people to understand that you need to prepare for the rainy day. That's what we call it. You need to prepare for the rainy day. It's not always going to trickle it in all the time. Sometimes there might be a problem somewhere. It might be your fault. Maybe not your fault. It just happened. And that's the thing with having a job. And that's why I think every single one of us needs to be entrepreneurs, and most of my listeners are entrepreneurs. So really, really important. But I'm going to tell a story that I've told several times. I have a friend who, told me that she spends £70 every 2 weeks on nails, on just her nails. And then that's 140 a month. And then she saves about £100 a month, right?
More on nails than on saving.
On her savings. That's just nails, I didn't even ask about the hair. I didn't ask about makeup, all these other things that women spend on. And it's fascinating. Does it bother you how bad people are with budgeting, just simple budgeting and planning their finances? Was that where you drew your inspiration from?
Absolutely. Now, we're going to do what we're most thought to do as normal. We're going to do what we observe. And if the prevailing message is advertising and marketing, that's what we're going to do. So I love how many of the capitalist nations work.
Yeah.
We work, we have a living, and it's a good living, and it's a comfortable living. And we make goods and services, and then we sell it to each other. We just don't know when to stop doing that. But marketing and advertising is the prevailing message. Are we hearing about saving as much? No. Are we hearing about investing as much? No. So we're going to do what we're most told to do, and we're going to do what we think others are doing. And so I don't blame anybody for spending. But at some point, when we hear, you know what, that actually doesn't benefit us, that actually takes the money from our pocket and put it in someone else's. If you wonder how billionaires are made, it's because collectively we're all taking our money and we're donating it to them. It's just centralizing everybody's money to one person. And so really, we owe it to ourselves to at some point learn. Yes, we can't blame ourselves if advertising and marketing is the prevailing message, so be it. But we owe it to ourselves to eventually apply wisdom and start to look out for ourselves, not just the companies we're funding through buying their goods and services.
Yeah. Awesome talk there by Scott. Honestly, great to have you on the podcast today. Great to have you on the podcast today. We are excited to learn from your knowledge, to learn from this book and everything. You talk about financial paralysis. So you've talked about what it really looks like for the average person. I think you've talked about that already. Now, how do you coach people out of that paralysis?
I love that question. And I always say when talking about finances, because it can feel like, oh, that's not for me. I didn't study finances. I'm not a numbers guy. We can think that it's not for us, but really it is. We all operate with finances. So how do we coach somebody? And that's the word, coach. We need to take something when it's unfamiliar, scary, intimidating, like finances commonly is, and we need to make it parallel to something we understand. So what I do is that word coach. I treat people like they're an athlete. I treat everybody like they have this ability that they need to take advantage of. And when you're like an athlete, you have this gift for a time, and then it's going to diminish. So the coach needs to get to that person and say, I see your potential. Let's do something about that. And the thing with finances is it's all about age. As soon as we earn money, finances is all about age. A child who starts early investing actually can outdo a financially savvy person who starts later. And that's what I love about money, is it's so humbling. It has nothing to do with the head knowledge necessarily, that we can trade stocks and single stocks and day trade. It doesn't have anything to do with that. For the average, common, everyday worker, it's all about starting early. And so I start to tell people, I say, like a coach to an athlete, you have this ability to multiply money. Let's go out and take advantage of this. And I quantified that. We're going to get into that because when you quantify things, people start understanding, they start feeling confident, and they can take action because they get it. They're not doing something they don't understand. They're doing something and they know the input, they know the output. And that's what I teach is 3 rules of thumb that help people feel like an athlete. And just like an athlete, now they're going to go out and practice because they're like, oh, I should go do this thing rather than spend. Now I have something better to do with my money. And that's what I teach. When you're like an athlete and when you realize you have an ability, with money to multiply it. You go do that instead because you understand it. You realize you have this ability like an athlete. You're going to go do it rather than miss your opportunity, rather than have that regret of, I had the chance to be a star soccer player or football player or baseball player or tennis player, and I squandered it. None of us want that. So we need to treat money like that too. Don't squander it. You need to grasp it, embrace it, and you need to take advantage of this opportunity. Coaching people that they have an ability to take care of is a very positive way to get them to steward what they have. Now their money has something better to do. There's a saying that you need to tell your money what to do, rather than, sorry, I'll say that again. You need to tell your money what to do rather than wonder where it went. And that's exactly what we got to do here.
Yeah.
It's just like sports. It's just like being an athlete. You got to get out there. You got to practice. You got to become the best you can. Use it while you got it before you lose it.
Yeah. You need to control money and not let money control you, isn't it? That's another way to say that, I guess. And you need to also make sure that you get to a point where the money is now working for you and not the other way around. So in your experience, then, what are three? Just tell us three. There's a lot. What are three most common money myths, right? Myth. How do you pronounce that? That hold people back. And what's the truth that sets them free?
Yep. Well, the first myth we've been talking about is that people are living the way they're looking. That's not true. Once again, under the hood, most of us are in debt and we're spending to look normal or spending to impress. So that's the first myth, is what's really going on under the hood for most people. We can't afford the lives that we're showing.
Yeah.
Second, I'll figure out money later. That's the age thing we're talking about. You may think, when I get promoted, when I make more money, when I have more time, let me get past this busyness of life, then I'll figure out money later. And there won't be any consequence. Or maybe that's when I'll be better at doing this. That's not true, because we talked about how age and investing early is the key to success for the average everyday person. So that's another myth, is I'll figure it out later. And third is that wealth and well-being, financial peace, that's not for me, right? That's another myth. Everybody is capable of this. It's not for somebody else to have financial fitness and financial health. That's for us too. There's a janitor, he used to clean stores and gas stations and such, named Ronald Reed in the US. He passed away. And that's when his legacy started, because he gave $8 million away to the local hospital, the library, and his family and his caregivers. $8 million from a janitor who's cleaning floors and toilets and things like that. How is that even possible? He taught us that you don't have to have a massive income or a big title in order to make a massive lasting difference. He was generous, and he had way more, we'll say 30 times more than the average person has at retirement. And he had retired for 17 years, then gave away $8 million at the end. That's impressive. So when we say that's not for me, Ronald Reed's story is there to prove us wrong. We each have the ability to optimize our own situation, and it's amazing what can be done. That's what we're going to talk about. We may think that we're an athlete without athletic ability, but we really are, because age is the only thing that we need.
Guys, start early, guys. Start early. You talked about compound interest. We're probably going to see it down the line. Really important, and it's one of those things that we were taught early on. But let me leave that for now, and let's talk about some practical strategies, right? Let's talk about practical strategies. So let's talk about your power of 16 principle. That's your principle. So why is it 16 touch a turning point, and how does it shape someone's financial future?
Yes. So power of 16 is our multiplying power. And I just want to clarify, it's age 22 that I talk about, that we have the power of 16. Let me explain that to you. So we need to start quantifying this. All this save early stuff, and you don't have as much multiplying power with invested money later in life. Well, we all, it makes sense. We may believe who's telling it to us. The principle sounds good. But in order to own it for ourselves, we have to quantify this. We have to have numbers. Then we own it. Then we can do quick grade school-like calculations in our head to figure out big money decisions on our own. Okay, so the average person starts a career maybe around age 22. So they're done with college and university. They're starting to earn money for the first time, and they can invest it, meaning they can put it into a retirement account, which is absolutely what I recommend first. So a retirement account through an employer, a retirement account on your own. If you work for yourself or do gig work. And then the last thing is you can invest in long-term investments in the US, stocks and bonds, index funds and mutual funds. You can do that in addition to or outside of a retirement plan altogether. It doesn't have to all be retirement related. But when you do those things at age 22, you have this multiplying power of 16, meaning you put $1,000 in, and by the time you retire, say that's your early 60s, age 62, I like to say, that $1,000 over the 40-year career turns into $16,000. That is incredible, knowing that. $1,000 in, $16,000 later. So, and then you put in another $1,000 the next year, that turns into $16,000 40 years later, and another 1,000. Now you're getting what's happening, and you're more likely to do something about it because you're like, wow, I have this multiplying power of 16.
Yeah.
That's incredible. And let me put it this way. This is all calculated based off of compound interest, which we talked about. The most common way to multiply money is through those vehicles I just talked about, but also a very common rate of return. 7.2% is normal. That's normal in stocks and bonds and that sort of combination, what you might find in a retirement or brokerage account. When we earn about that much, money doubles every 10 years. So let's go back and let's find out what's happening between that 1,000 and the 16,000. So 1 doubles into 2,000, 2,000 into 4,000, 4,000 into 8,000, 8,000 into 16,000. So what's happening is every 10 years of a 40-year career, money's doubling. And when you can do that, now all of a sudden, you don't just understand what the input and output is. Now you're understanding what's happening every 10 years in between. When we break things down like that, it's called cognitive chunking. When you cognitive chunk, it helps you internalize something for life. Cognitive chunking is what we do to memorize phone numbers. We don't need to do that as much anymore because of cell phones. But cognitive chunking is what we do with addresses. It's what we do with names. It's what we do with all sorts of things because our brain loves to chunk things up. So if money doubles every 10 years, 1,000 turns into 16,000. But here's the challenge. Most people don't like the idea of waiting. We want things now. We are now minded. We're not later minded. So when you say to the average person, why don't you invest $1,000? It should be 16,000 by the time you retire. That excites maybe 20% of the population. 80% it does not, because we want immediate gratification. We're used to ordering something and it arriving on our doorstep the next day. We're used to email. We're used to text, immediate response. So we need to think in terms of those ways. So what I did was, instead of saying 1,000 turns to $16,000 later, I flipped things around and said, actually, you have the power of 16 now. That is your ability. Don't worry about money and multiplying this object. You have the power of 16 right now. When you have this power, it actually diminishes every 10 years. You have the power of 16 now when you start your career at age 22. 10 years later, it's the power of 8. 10 years later, it's the power of 4, then 2, then 1. Your power is diminishing just like athletics. We can't expect to be a boxer, a gymnast, any of these, arts. We can't expect to be just as good as we were when we were at our prime. It's going to diminish. And so the same is true with finances. When we realize that we have this amazing multiplying power that diminishes over time, we get what's called a sense of urgency. And another thing that's working, a psychological principle called loss aversion. Loss aversion is twice as powerful as gaining something. So when we talk about, you'll gain $16,000 later. Okay. You know what? We care about twice as much if our multiplying power halves every 10 years. That's twice as powerful. So I teach in that way using the loss aversion, because losing to the human mind, it perks our ears up. It pricks our mind. It gets us to take action even more so because it's twice as powerful as gaining. So the power of 16, and it diminishes, our multiplying power with money diminishes every 10 years. That's the idea. That's all we need to know. And it's what I've been practicing for the past many years myself. And it's great to see money doubling. And I'm taking action that I would have never taken because I understand this. And I know we're going to get more into some examples later, but that's the power of 16.
Can you share one of your go-to budgeting or investing frameworks that our listeners can use right now? Something very simple that not anyone, but anyone who is interested can use right now.
Yeah.
Budgeting
I
and
love that. Let's get into examples. And the first example I'm going to give you, we're going to get through, and then we're going to get to some real life examples. But first, let me pose it this way. Let's say you work 1 week and you work for 40 hours and you get paid for that week. You get your paycheck at the end of 1 week. That's what we do. We're pleased with that. We're trading our skill and time for that paycheck. Great. Now let's say all of a sudden that we work 1 week and our company says, you know what? You're such a good employee. We're going to pay you double. We're going to pay you for 2 weeks for your 1 week of work. All of us are ecstatic about that. We are so excited about that. That's the power of 2. That's what the power of 2 feels like. And we are just off the wall, excited about getting paid twice as much, right? We love that. What's the power of 16 like? It's like working 1 week of work and get paid for 4 months. That is the leverage that we have. It's hard for us to understand until we give that example. 1 week of work, 4 months of pay. Then you work another week of work, 4 more months of pay. So I really want people to understand the power of 16 and how important it is. But let's get into some examples. Okay, so for those that have kids or a younger person whose lives that they look into, we save for their college education, right? You have the option to save early. If money doubles every 10 years, how much do we need to save for college 10 years earlier? Well, let's say we wanted to try to pay for the whole thing. In the US, about $40,000 is the average student loan. So if we wanted to have $40,000 when our child went to school and money doubles every 10 years, well, 10 years before they go to school, we need to save half. So instead of 40, we save $20,000 in a college fund, what's called a 529 plan in the US. Now, let's say we got extra excited and we said, well, why don't I start saving even earlier? Okay, no one's stopping you. Save 10 years earlier, you don't need to save half. Now you only need to save half of a half. If money doubles every 10 years, now we can work backwards and say, well, if I want $40,000 when my child goes to college, 10 years earlier, save $20,000. When they're born 10 years earlier, save only $10,000. Now we can pay for college with $10,000 up front rather than wait and our student child takes out a loan and pays $50,000 for a $40,000 education. They're overpaying for that education when they take a student loan. Why not pay for that same thing using $10,000 instead of $50,000 for the same thing? So I love that example. That's money doubling every 10 years.
Yeah.
Now, yeah, how about this? I've been coaching some people. One person had money in a place where it was earning no interest. And I said, hey, why don't you put this money where it can earn 7.2%, what I talk about in my book, because money can double every 10 years. You're in your early 30s, you're 32. Okay, so if you put this money aside, how many times is it going to double? From 32 to 42, 42 to 52, 52 to 62. You're going to have $200,000 if you move this money. And he was like blown away. He had no idea. But that's having the power, the multiplying power and understanding for him in his early 30s, the power of 8. Here's another example. There was a young fella that got a windfall, got a bunch of money, hundreds of thousands of dollars, all of a sudden. And if that person was to spend it all, they'd have a good time and it'd be gone. But what about this? There's a multiplying power because they were so young. And that money, if they set some aside, was going to turn into $4 million when they retired. Yes, they can spend some of it, but now they understand if I set aside just this portion, there's going to be $4 million because I have the power of 16. It's going to multiply that much till I retire. I get it. Now I'll set aside. If I had no idea what was going to happen, I wouldn't do that. But now that I can calculate in my head because I have the power of 16, this money I set aside multiplied by 16. And when I retire, it'll be there. Then they're more likely to take that action. So these are different examples. One more just to run by you. Buy a used car, buy a new car. Well, if you're in a place where you can buy a new car without any debt, if you can pay it with cash, that's what I recommend. Now, let's say you can't. So I have a friend that instead of buying a car for $30,000, they bought one for $20,000. And they took that extra $10,000 and they invested it. They have the power of 4 because they're in their 40s. So that 10,000 will turn to 20, 20 will turn to 40,000. And they're like, now instead of just having a new car, I have a great car that's used. Plus I'm going to have $40,000 more in retirement. Bingo. That's what they did because they understand if they do this now, this is what's going to happen later. So the frameworks that I talk about these were all applying that money can double every 10 years when it's invested. And then this is also talking about the multiplying powers we have at different ages. Power of 6 at age 22, power of 8 at age 32, power of 4 at age 42 and such. When we quantify things like this, bingo, big money decisions are now easy.
You know, that car one that you talked about, that car example really resonates with me. Because I've lived here for a couple years now and I don't have a car because I work from home and I don't see any reason why I should have a car in London where, there's all these things they call like, ultra low emission zones and stuff like this that just, you need to pay each time you get past certain areas in London. It's crazy. Say it's for the planet, it's for this, it's for that, climate, whatever. So I'm just like, I've got my license like 4 years ago. I have the license, it's there somewhere. And I don't have a car. And I'll probably use that format, that thing you just said. No, instead of buying a new car, I will have a look at getting a used one and then investing the extra that I would have used to get the new car somewhere. And then, hoping to double it every 10 years. I'm still in my 30s, so hopefully I'll have enough in
We got
retirement.
some time.
Yeah.
Age.
That's very interesting practical steps, guys. So guys, these steps, I'm sure everyone can relate to this. I think everyone listening to me today, you guys can relate to some, one story or the other, or even all the stories that Scott is sharing today. So just let us know what you think about the points that he's raising in the comment section below. Tell us what you think. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to let us know in the comment section, section below about, gonna do this self-assessment. If you're doing, get this accountant to help you do this, do that. There's just a lot of things going on that some business people are not really grounded on. And sometimes they get ripped off. Sometimes they do the wrong things and the tax man comes for them. So what are some of the most common tax season traps that people fall into? And what advice would you give to our listeners today that are preparing for the next filing?
Well, the first advice about taxes, pay it. If you have ever enjoyed a road or the police force or a sign on the street, or any of these common things where life is just taken care of, the infrastructure of our cities, then the taxes you pay are paying for that. And so, we each need to contribute. I know of folks that did not pay taxes and the government will come after you and you will pay the taxes and you'll pay the penalty. So that's the big and obvious one. The next thing, this is more personal taxes, but adjust your withholding. So we all have money that's pulled out every paycheck. Adjust your withholding so that at the end of the year, you don't have much of a refund and you don't have much of a payment to make either. Getting closest to zero is the goal. And the reason is because you don't want to give the government a tax-free loan, right? That's what it is like when we pay too much taxes. We could be multiplying that money instead. And then a refund, and then paying later just hurts. Nobody likes to pay the government a big lump sum at tax time. So get near zero by withholding the proper amount over the year. And then the last thing is there's tax advantages when you save certain ways. So for retirement or for your child's education, for instance, absolutely take advantage of those. Because person A could say, well, I'll just earn for the year and then later I'll save some money and set it aside in the bank. That money's getting taxed. So right away it's getting reduced.
Right.
And then before you put it towards the cost of education or retirement or whatever it may be, put it in those tax advantaged accounts. It makes a massive compounding it makes a massive compounding effect over time. So, yep, if you're keeping 10%, 15% more of this part of money, that's just growing that much faster. You're not going one step backward, two step forward, one step backward, two step forward. You're just continuing two step forward, two step forward, two step forward, two step forward. So I say invest throughout the year in tax advantage savings because that money is just going to multiply with protections around it, and the government and the tax man is not going to keep taking their cut out of it every single year, reducing it. So that's the other thing is take advantage of tax savings throughout the year.
Yeah. Yeah, I do agree with that, and I second those points. Yeah, I'm sure people listen, I'm sure you guys are quite smart, and I'm sure you guys have sort of the right people advise you, especially if you're not knowledgeable about these things, because these things are very important. They somehow, affect your business, or both positively or negatively, depending on how.
Hey, one more thing about being a business owner. The first many years that I ran a business, I spent everything. Now, I know earlier when we talked about being an individual, we said, don't do that. But when you're running a business, I say if you need assets, and I need to grow my business quickly, a video business. So you're going to be spending tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars on gear, cameras, backpacks, lights, microphones, everything, gimbals, sliders is some of the other equipment we use, tripods. So all of this and computers and software. All of this adds up. And if you're going to spend it and you're going to need to get those things, I say get them up front. If this is a side gig and you're not having to live off of that income. And the reason is because if you don't spend that money, it's getting taxed and you're going to need to get that equipment anyway. So what I did for the first few years of owning a business is I spent everything that was made and I got everything up front. And guess what? It wasn't taxed.
Yeah.
Then later I'd pay my taxes after I got everything I needed. So if that's a strategy, it'll work for some. It doesn't work as much if you need to live off of that income. But for me, side gig work, I love the idea of putting that right into assets for the company that you're going to need to get anyway, and you get them tax-free upfront.
Yeah. True. Smart one. Yeah, well, that's why, guys, you need to get a new accountant, a good accountant, someone that knows what they're doing, someone that can, especially for those because it's not everyone that knows about sort of finances. People want to do businesses, but they don't actually know about the financial aspect, but they have the idea. We're not saying you have to know everything here. However, the places that you're not really good at, obviously you need to find someone that can help you. That's what makes a good leader. That's what makes a good tycoon,
Yes, tycoon.
Yeah. We're going to talk about generational wealth and literacy now. And some people have been able to create generational wealth for their families and stuff like this and this and this. And I think that's the plan for most people. Most people want to do that. Most people want to be able to create generational wealth, but unfortunately, it's not everyone that's going to be able to achieve that. Then for parents, then what are some key financial habits that they should be modeling for their kids, even if they are still figuring things out themselves?
Yeah. I love that you brought up that term, generational wealth. That's for some people that scares them. I want to have nothing to do with that. Ethically, that sounds just wrong. But then for others, it's like, man, that's really smart. So think about a snowball. When you build a snowball and you're rolling that ball of snow on the ground, if you start small, it takes a while for snow to build up. And when we start with money and we're all starting from zero and we're all starting from scratch, it's like building a snowball when there was no snowball to start with. It takes a while to get to it. But now I want you to think about starting with a snowball this big. Like it was just given to you this big. And they say, make it bigger. You're rolling it, and that thing is getting big fast. That's generational wealth. That's being handed something to start with. You're going to put the same effort. You're going to still travel so long to roll this. But the small snowball over this distance only gets so much. The big snowball over this distance is gaining so much around the whole thing just by walking and rolling the same distance. So let's get our kids going on this so that it's their financial lives is leveraged and they can gain faster than maybe even we did when we were younger. We can actually give them a leg up and an advantage. And I think we owe it to them and our families to do so, to not always have to start from scratch every single generation and start over every single generation. Let's pass down what we know, and let's pass down some of what we know. So, and some of what we've saved. So here's the deal. The average person watches 78,000 hours of television per year. That's 9 years around the clock if we weren't sleeping. 9 years watching television around the clock. That's like 1/8 of our lives. That's pretty wild. What I'm saying is, let's take a few hours instead of watching TV and let's learn about finances. So for instance, the book that I wrote, Financial Epiphany, I used to think that books took months to read. It takes 4 hours to read a nonfiction book like this, 200 pages. It only takes 4 hours, but we spend 78,000 hours or 9 years watching television. We owe it to our kids to learn about money, whether we feel like we're savvy with finances or not. We need to learn a little bit, and we need to raise our kids in order to take the intimidation and the fear out of their lives. Because if the parent is teaching the child, then from the get-go, this can be something very comfortable to learn. Let's help them get over intimidation early. I used to think that investing was gambling. That was my understanding when I was a child. And it took me my own career and many years of my life to figure out we do need to invest for our future. We can't just stick the money under our mattress at home and hope that it's there 40 years later. We have to invest. And when we do invest, we're believing in the companies that we all work at. We're believing in the companies that holds this country and this world together. We all need jobs. Not everybody's going to quit work and not work ever again. So when we invest in these companies, we're believing that we're all going to continue to work and sell these goods and services to each other. So invest. What I do is I recommend that parents, even if they haven't started a brokerage account before, that they start one for their kids. And when you start one for your kids, it helps them get over the intimidation because you looked it up as an adult. You did the work for them. Consider it even a gift. For your birthday this year, I started something called a custodial account. I'm going to put in $100. And when more gift money comes in from other family members, let's put a portion of that in there too.
In there, yeah.
Yep. You may not care about this as it gets started, but let me tell you, over time, we're going to keep doing this every year, every birthday or every holiday season. And then you're going to start to like what you see. That's what I recommend parents do.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. Honestly, I like that you've kept that short and simple there, and it's important. It's important because I didn't have any. If no one knew that already, I didn't have any of those accounts that my parents gave me. They didn't give me anything to say, oh, this was what we were saving when you were young. When I was born, probably people came and saw, oh, this cute little boy that was born on Easter Sunday. And they dropped something, they gave something to my mom, my dad, whosoever. But, what happened to that money? They must have used it for maybe nappies and things like this for me. But I didn't see any. So just imagine, guys, I'm trying to make it as practical as possible and break it down. Imagine, guys, that you're saving, let's say, $100, £100 every month, or even 50 for your child. Imagine how much that will be when they are 16. So another thing that you believe is that teaching kids about money very early is vital. So what is one activity or conversation that every family should have this month? Just quickly, immediately, just give us like an immediate conversation that parents should have with their kids right now. starts that process?
Yeah. Two things come to mind. One is save and spend and give. So every dollar that comes in, let's put 10% towards giving. Let's put 20% towards saving. And then the other 70% you can spend. Very easy. There are piggy banks that are divided in thirds like that. It's up to each family to decide what percentages, but that's the easy one for young kids. And then for the older kids, what I do is I actually show them their college savings. And so when we saved for my son's college and the money doubled, I showed him. I said, hey, look at this. Because I want him to know that it really works. And waiting 10 years for money to double can, for a young person, seem like forever and they can become disinterested. But for the parent, they know that there's a lifelong lesson there if they show them. So I show him that. With his custodial account, my son's custodial account, I let him pick single stocks. Now, I don't recommend single stocks for retirement or anything else like that, saving for these things. But I allow him to choose single stocks as like a birthday present or holiday, like I said, holiday gift, because they can learn, oh, during the pandemic, I see when everybody had to stay home, Amazon did really good. Everybody had things delivered at home, and he saw that. Netflix did really good. Everybody stayed home and watched TV from their home streaming. He got it because real life was happening, and he saw companies go up and down as a result. It wasn't his money. We were gifting him money and letting him choose single stocks and then look at, that's what happens. So he started very early to understand, here's when something happens, a disruptor in the world. Then he could start to even guess, oh, that's what's going to happen to this company. I think that's going to happen. And so one of the things we did was we invested in something by accident that was used for virtual reality because he liked the virtual reality goggles in the games. And the company that we invested in, we got some stuff because we're like, hey, you like this virtual reality thing? It seems like it's going to become something. Well, that company that he got stock in was called NVIDIA. And then artificial intelligence came rolling around, a disruptor, and NVIDIA shot up, and he already had it. He got to see what happened when a new technology got adopted and became extremely valuable and extremely popular worldwide all at once. And he knows that, and he's only a teenager at this point. So advice for kids, parents, don't let them take any risk with their money. The money that you can gift to them, teach them a lesson through a custodial account, and then that split piggy bank as well.
Yeah. Really smart words there from Scott. Thank you again, Scott, for coming on the channel. We really appreciate your insights and your thoughts. Really helpful. I'm sure a lot of people are learning from this conversation today. We're approaching home stretch, so we're going to talk about quickly psychology and money. So how do people often feel? This is a feeling. This is a feeling that people have. How does guilt and shame show up in our financial habits? And what is your best advice for reframing from these emotions, guilt and shame?
Most of us have guilt and shame because most of us are not being taught money early. We're having to figure it out later. And most of us are afraid that we've been doing the wrong thing. And actually, most of us are in some form of financial distress. And so we're living paycheck to paycheck or we're relying on debt. And so at some point in our lives, we need to take responsibility and take finances up on our own and operate them and steward them and manage them in a healthy way. It's simple to do so, just like we've been talking about. You're an athlete and you can multiply money like an amazing thing. And when we realize we have this ability, that's the positive thing that gets us out of those feelings. It's taking the athlete that fell down and saying, get up, keep running. You can actually win this race. Don't just go sit on the bench. Run as fast as you can and put in that effort because you have this ability. You were born to be a runner. In this case, you're born to multiply money and steward it because what's at the end of the race is not just a comfortable retirement. It's actually purpose. And I want to drive people towards purpose. Purpose will overshadow and squash and destroy any feeling of guilt and shame. Guilt and shame is, I did these things wrong. I don't want anybody to know about it.
Yeah.
Each one of us can have that past. But when we turn our money towards purpose and say, I got this multiplying power 16 right now, or 8, or whatever it is, I'm going to do what I can do with this, and I'm going to start funding my mission on this earth. I'm going to start funding my purpose with what I have. And when we turn our sights on that purpose and on our ability, it changes everything. Everything's in the light now. Those guilt and shame is now in the shadows, and we're not looking back, and we can't see them anymore. So let me give you an example. So Warren Buffett, the world's most famed investor, he says, if we're born in a first world nation like the UK or US, we have just won the ovarian lottery, meaning we've been born into prosperity and we've been born into opportunity. Money can multiply every 10 years if we put it in a place where it's earning 7.2% interest rate or rate of return. And so not everybody is born into those situations. Many people want to move into a country where that does happen. It's like boarding a train, and you're not the one operating the train or fueling the train. You're getting on it, and that train is going someplace. That's what it's like to live in a first world nation where money multiplies every 10 years and doubles every 10 years. And so shame and guilt. What I want to say is, I took a trip recently to Sierra Leone, Africa, and I learned that the average teacher wage per month was about $100 a month. And so that's not very much. To send a child to school and help feed their family for the month was about $20 per month. Not very much. To build an entire middle school, in the US, you could spend about $500,000 and have a condominium and have a small place to live with you and your family. But in Sierra Leone, it would build an entire school where 200 kids can go get an education on any given year. And so I realized when you have purpose with your money, there's things to go out and do with it. In this case, when I'm talking about Sierra Leone, money that we earn in the US, we can arbitrage. It doubles fast. But then what if you put it over towards the school or these children in Sierra Leone? It does so much more. It does so much more when we start investing in the lives of others and we see ourselves as a citizen of the world. We're not just limited to our country and our neighborhood. The money that we multiply can do so much good elsewhere. Now, where is guilt and shame in all this? Nowhere to be seen. It's not anywhere anymore when we're talking about this stuff, right? Because we realize how much we actually have. We have a lot in first world nations. We have a lot. And those who are business owners and those who are earning and multiplying money, we do have a lot. And so on top of looking out for ourselves and our own families and our business, who else out there can we help with the funds that we're multiplying?
Yeah. Honestly, you haven't just talked about this thing from the aspect of making money. You're also talking here about giving back. And that is a perspective that I've rarely heard on. That means a lot. Really do appreciate that perspective. It's a perspective I think that resonates with a lot of the listeners. Just the last question before you give us your final thoughts. You've worked in both Fortune 500 companies and you've worked in grassroots coaching as well. So what financial lessons translate across every income level? Is there any at all?
Yeah. No, I love it. I like to say that money is the same across every age, wage, and stage of life. And by that, it means it doesn't matter whether you're making a little or you're making a lot. Most people on average are struggling with money. Even people that are making hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars per year. It's not that they're better off. We're all about the same at every age, wage, and stage of life. And so we need to get over that myth. You asked about myths earlier. And so we need to get over that and realize we need to learn this money thing wherever we're at, whatever our life is. It is for us. So that's what translates across all the different levels. Frugality and living with your means translates across every single wage level as well. So we need to be watching what we spend and spending less than we make and not going into debt. The only thing I actually recommend going into debt for is a house. If we can, we should aim to do everything else debt-free. And then generosity at every level. Generosity doesn't have to be until we retire. Generosity doesn't have to be wait until we make more money. Generosity is now, and it's a muscle we can start building now. We want to start building financial muscles now. We want to start building generosity now, because it's a hard thing to try to suddenly bring on later. But to be generous throughout the whole our whole life is, a recommendation I have across every age, wage, and stage.
Scott, so what will be your parting shots just before we conclude?
Yeah, so just to wrap it all up, the most valuable thing that I can pass along to everybody, the rule of thumb that I teach, the financial epiphanies, they are that under common circumstances, money can double every 10 years. And then the second epiphany is that we start our careers with a multiplying power of 16 over money if we retire 40 years later. And then the third epiphany is that our multiplying power halves every 10 years. Starts at the power of 16 when we start working, and it halves to the power of 8 10 years later, then 4, then 2, and then 1 when we retire. And so with those 3 financial epiphanies, that's what I've been running my financial life of. It's caused many people to take action early because now they know that ability that they have. And so I would just want to make sure people understand that. My book, Financial Epiphany, here on Amazon, and financialepiphany.com is my website for people that want to know more. And so there's videos on there. And I will post the link to this video once it's available, Chucks. So you give it to me and that'll go on my speaking page. There's also a free download for those that want to know how much do I save for retirement, or how do I talk to a financial advisor for the first time and have a meeting? How do I get out of debt? That lesson's on there. So there's the free PDF download to walk you through all those basics. But the book is more about what we just talked about, the 3 financial epiphanies of understanding our ability to multiply money.
Brilliant. Really brilliant. Scott, this conversation has been equal parts empowering and grounding. And, that's a rare combination in the world of personal finance, I must say. I'm an accountant of about 8 years now or more, and I can say that that's rare. You have taken some of the most intimidating parts of money, debt and guilt, uncertainty, and you've shown us how clarity, simplicity, and just one good decision at a time can change everything. So guys, if you want to download Scott's Money Moves Guide or grab a copy of Financial Epiphany, please head to financialepiphany.com/moneymoves. Yeah, we're going to end here, guys. Until next time, stay curious, stay bold. Please comment, share the video, and give a thumbs up to this video as well. Don't forget as well to subscribe to the channel. And take care and God bless.